Shalom, family. We are with the man, the moment demands, and the YouTube series of The Bass in My Voice. My name is Yediah, the Inspirer, your co host, and we are, of course, hosted by our elder, Yasalvanut. And we on chapter 5 or 6 today, elder?
We are on chapter 6, talking about
Chapter
the
6,
lover.
The Lover.
Yeah. So again, the man, the moment demands by Jason Wilson. We Chapter 6 is a good chapter. Again, we don't. Again, we're not a book club. We're not going to read the whole chapter. Not even going to read 10% of the chapter. Basically, we're just going to hit some points here and there and discuss it. Kind of get you excited about the book. Everybody should have the book by now, hopefully. And if you don't, I would suggest that you get the book. It is a very good book, very good read. I think one of the benefits of being able to uh, have a book and then get on a format like this, it kind of gets you moving towards reading the book. Often we read two, three chapters and then we put the book down, and before we know it, a year's gone by and we haven't read anymore. But here if we're getting on weekly, then we can at least have an expectation to read the chapter, part of the chapter, or even be inspired by what is being said to finish the chapter so that we can move on. But it's a good
Hopefully
book.
this motive it is a good book, and hopefully this motivates, not only for you to get the book, but you can, read along with us. Again, this is not a book club, but if you get the book ahead of time before you watch each YouTube video that we post, you can have the chapter read ahead of time and see what thoughts you glean from it, and also compare, just so that you're not binge reading it all the way straight through and not picking up the many nuggets and the treasures that is in here. So definitely want to encourage you to get it, follow along, and take your time with it, and let it influence you, let it encourage you.
Be thoughtful about the examples he's giving, because he really reaches into personal experiences that bring out what he's trying to relay as far as the chapter is concerned. And I think that that's important because all of us have experiences in our lives that point to where we're at and what things we need to work on, what things we need to find some strength in.
And also
So
how we got there,
uh,
as well. And he alludes to that really major, and in this particular chapter, especially.
yeah, yeah. So we're
Um,
gonna dive in.
yep.
With Like always, I like starting and kind of keying in as far as the majority of what we talk about right there in the description of the chapter. I think in that description, he really kind of sums a lot of it up, but then he breaks everything down by the experiences that he had. In the description, chapter 6, talking about the lover. Well, even before I get there, Yadai, what, what comes to mind when you think of when a man thinks of the idea of being a lover?
My first thought comes, obviously from my youth and just growing up in the world. You think of romance, you think of being suave, smelling good, doing your best to impress, prostrating within the first, 30 to 60 days, maybe less than that. But where I'm at in life now, when I think about, the lover, the first thing that comes to mind is, what is the other person's definition of love, who I'm trying to love, and am I actually paying enough attention to figure it out? And do I know how I want to be loved?
Yeah, and that's good because I think that that's generally speaking how a lot of us come up in life growing into manhood when we think about what it is to be a lover. We think about the romantic aspect of it. That's the first thing that comes to mind. But like you were saying, we need to expand on that. We need to mature and to grow into a deeper understanding, deeper knowledge of just what that means so that we can actually be the man the moment demands. Again, I absolutely love the title of the book. because it requires us, if we are going to meet every moment that demands us to respond, we have to be healthy. We have to be in a place in our lives where we've kind of dealt with some of the misconceptions of what it is to be a man, some of the trauma that we've gone through that has kept us from actually functioning and being the
Hmm.
men that we need to be. The lover knows that love is demonstrated through action. I want to stop right there. Man, sometimes it takes being in a relationship to understand that we have to, love has to be an action word. It can't be this feeling. And when we get into relationships, especially long-term relationships, we'll notice that the feeling of love may subside often, and we're not necessarily feeling love on a day-to-day basis. That throws the immature mind off, because we think that we're going to have this warm, fuzzy feeling all the time. And when it leaves, we think maybe something's going wrong with the relationship. And that should not be. That should not be the first thought. We understand that uh, feelings are fickle. Feelings are going to come and go, but it doesn't mean we are not in love anymore. And through my years of counseling and even reading and studying up on relationship, one of the things that is important that they tell you is, when you don't feel love, in order to get that loving feeling back, what you should do is just start doing things that you would normally do if you felt that feeling of love. And when you start acting on those, then that feeling will eventually start coming back.
So
So
is what you're
it's,
saying, when you start to feel like that love is decreasing or detaching, you want them to start performing the actions that they would look to feel to have that love come back? Like do the things that you would like to receive?
yeah, like, when you feel love, often you like, you want to buy flowers and gifts, going out to dinner, taking her out on dates, giving her a hug, get having some of those moments that usually you do when you feel that overwhelming desire for love. So you want to do them anyway, even though you may not have the feeling. And those feelings will then eventually start responding to your action, and they'll start coming back.
Right. Instead of waiting for the feeling to spark you, because sometimes you'll be waiting forever. You don't want to wait for this magical moment, and I don't even like to use that word, but these just random moments where like you something has to fuel you or fire you up. And in the book it talks about desire, versus discipline. Anybody can discipline themselves to love somebody a certain way, but to ignite that desire in a more natural way, the feeling will come through more genuine.
That is correct. That is a mature way. And again, that will put you in a position to be what the moment demands.
Right.
What is that moment? That moment is the lover. So if I want to be that lover, then I have, even when the feeling is not there, I've got to respond and act and move the relationship in that direction just through my action, and allow the feelings to come back. And that's why, again, I say I love the way you titled this book, because really, when we begin to think about it, we can begin to gauge our life based off of, okay, can I meet this moment? Can I respond in the way that I should, based off of what is being required of me at any given time.
That's really good. And also, I'm hearing you use examples that we typically hear about, like with flowers and candy and really nice out to eat dinners, but that doesn't carry an entire relationship for a lifetime, which is what we should be aiming for in a marriage. However, the levels to this that our elder is talking about, like flowers and candy maybe for the first 2 or 3 months, but then what's next? And then now, this doesn't mean you have to break the bank or that you have to go from riding a bike to a Ferrari. It's this is not a financial elevation or increase. It's okay to profit financially and to elevate yourself, but the aim, as far as to continuing to be a consistent lover, has these layers that different moments in life require different types of moments of being a lover. You know, what somebody needs today is not what they needed yesterday. Those same flowers and candy at 19 years old is not the same thing as, oh honey, you got the whole house cleaned up at 30 years old. Or at 50 years old, you know, you're starting to lose relatives and close ones, and that spouse is right by your side through your grieving process, and you taking a little bit more time off of work or just pouring into them more while they're going through that process. Those are all moments of being able to show love that have nothing to do with the ways you showed it prior, but you're able to keep up with the cycles of life and provide the love that is in all moments, whether it's gift giving, whether it's affirmations, or just, you know, just being in each other's presence and being present in the moment with them.
Yeah, yeah. Being being that man that the
That's
moment
right.
demands.
And
You
not
know,
waiting for her to directly ask you too, because we know the women, they'll drop hints and they'll hint around at things,
oh,
and that's because
absolutely.
and that's because they want it to be genuine, you know. But if they tell you, you know, they don't, you know, like, why don't you just tell me directly? Well, in so many ways she is, but for you to figure it out and to find the moment, and for her to be able to see what genuinely comes out of you, it makes it that much more special. You know, buying
Right.
somebody the shoes that they picked out versus you knowing them well enough to pick out the right ones changes the gift completely. You know,
You
and
know,
it doesn't even always have to mean money. It could just mean like you remembered something that was said a couple of months ago and you took it and you shined it up even bigger than what the person imagined. And it could be a really beautiful thing.
that's what I've found in the 42 years that I've been married is that my wife is going to often give me clues. In the younger years of our marriage, I was saying what you just talking about. You know, why didn't you just say it? You know, why didn't you just tell me? And she would respond in that same way. Well, I want it to be genuine. I want it to be, you know, that you're thinking about me, that you just do it, you know. And I had to learn to watch when I can see that she's looking for me to do something special for her, picking up the clues that, you know, that she's ready to, you know, to have a date night, going out to dinner or to a movie. And if we're paying attention, then we can begin to move, again, be, you know, be what we need to be at that moment. But if we're caught up in our own emotions and caught up in our own uh, needs and not dealing with those, then we're not going to really be able to respond to the needs of others,
That's right.
especially if we're saying that we want to be a good lover. Well, that's not just talking about in the bed. That's talking about in life. That's
That's
talking
right.
about in the relationship.
And speaking into the bed as well, you know, the book in this chapter, it alludes to that as well. I would definitely encourage you to go and read it. But just the same as you want to be considerate to what this person is communicating to you, in, you know, outside of the bedroom and in the bedroom, you might need to stop and ask yourself, are these responses I'm getting from her responses of affirming me and what's making me happy, or are these responses actually genuine from her and what's pleasing her and making her happy? And if there's not both answers to both of those questions, then you might be being selfish to either yourself or her.
Yeah, that is a long discussion right there, and we could fill an hour talking about
Oh
being
yeah, I just want to drop
selfish.
that pebble. I just want to get the mind jogging. 'Cause somewhere somebody's thinking, "Oh man, am I good?" If you're thinking like that, great. Go read that chapter and think about it some more because it's important to consider.
Absolutely. The second point that he's made was devotion to Yah, or devotion to God. Um,
Mm,
that probably doesn't run across many people's minds that being a good lover means that I have to have a healthy devotion to Yah. But that's where we learn actually how to properly love. If we don't have that relationship with the Father, then we are going to find ourselves failing in so many areas of life, because as a child of the Most High, and him being a good father, he is demonstrating to us on every level, in every area of life, how we should respond, how we should act, and what we should do. And so, if we're saying, okay, how do I become a better lover? Okay, well, let's look at the example that Yah has given us. And from that, we'll be able to ascertain how to respond to our wives based off of how he responds to Israel. And so, if we're seeing how he's responding, we're seeing the back and forth, we're seeing the responsibilities that he's taking, then we can understand, okay, this is maybe where I'm lacking at, because I'm not showing her this, or I'm not giving her this, or I'm not doing this for her. So, our devotion to Yah actually is a great teacher to kind of give us that energy or that know how as to what I need to do, what I need to be as a great lover.
Hallelujah. And what I love about this point in this particular chapter. And again, there are many points. We're just touching on a couple of them. But what I love about this particular point is that the Father first loved us. He makes it very clear that He first loved us. Much like a parent when a child is born into the world, the child's first love is the parent. And the book speaks about this when it comes to the womb of the mother. But I'll let you guys read about that. But when it comes to the Father above, when it comes to the Most High Yah, he loved us first, and he demonstrates every day how he loves us by his guidance, by his encouragement, by the discipline, by the chastisement, but also our first response in loving him back is through our obedience. His love is his law, right? And our obedience, which is greater than sacrifice, is what he it requires of us first and foremost, and really all throughout. It's a lamp unto our feet, right? And then the greatest two commandments is to love him, his laws, his commandments, to be obedient, but also to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So not only do we first receive love from him, we first learn love from him, and then how to give it back to him, and also how to give it to others if we read correctly. There was a quote in this particular chapter that really stood out to me. Now, the scripture that to me backs this up is that you know a tree by the fruit that it bears.
Mhm.
But the book also says that, to when you find the fruit, find the root. I think I'm quoting that correctly. Whether I'm quoting it correctly or not, go read the book. But find the fruit, find the root, and that stood out to me because there's especially today with the GMO and not and no seeds in the fruit and different things like that. It's going to be very important to know what garden did this come from, right? Because we know the enemy gives gifts and stuff too, and has his way of deceit, using deceptive methods of love that's not righteous. So it is so cool getting to experience our first relationship among high, and then trying to compare it in a relationship, because if you can't love him, and you can't love the people around you and yourself, how you're going to fare in a long lasting relationship is going to look pretty rocky. So make sure your own roots are great products before you just go displaying your own fruits.
Well, those, knowing the root, or knowing where the fruit is coming from, and you mentioned GMOs, they don't necessarily have the same type of nutrients that a organic fruit would have. And
Hmm.
so, like you were pointing out, if we don't know where these things are coming from, then we're going to find ourselves not receiving what we are looking for. And so, and in a relationship, that's the same way.
That's right. You can be malnourished in a relationship just like you can in your body.
That's right. And you mentioned, and when you start talking about order, and I use that word order because when he's talking about his law, statutes, and commandments, because he's ordering his household that way. A man
Mm.
must understand that one of your responsibilities as a good lover is to demonstrate and set order within your home.
That's
And
right.
if when you see Yah doing that, then you have to understand, okay, I have to have like order so that there are things that we do and things that we do not do, ways that we talk and ways we do not talk, places
Right.
that we can go and places we cannot go. Times come in at night, and times in which we sit where we come together. See, this is important when he's showing us all of these things, but often we don't know how to look for them until somebody kind of highlights them and says, if you're not setting order in your home, how can you be a good lover, because your wife is looking to you to set these things. She was created to be a helpmeet, and so she when she comes in, she's looking for your leadership. But we're not if we don't know who we are, we've not dealt with what our responsibilities are, then we're not going to be uh, uh, leading her in the way that's important. Follow the direction that the Most High, or the example that the Most High has given us. This is what he's talking about when he says devotion to Yah, because our devotion, meaning our relationship with Him, our reading, gaining understanding of the Scripture, and then learning how to apply that to our lives. Now I am in a position where I can be able to fulfill the needs that she has. And I said this in an earlier lesson, that men are responsible for creating the foundation for a woman to be able to fulfill why she was created. And so if we're not in our place and we're not setting that foundation, then she is going to struggle with finding how to be the helpmeet that she needs. And
That's
then we're
right.
going to and that's where all these other issues come in, because then she gets out of place because she's not finding fulfillment in how she was created. So she's now trying to take your position, your place.
That's
You're
right.
now feeling disrespected. You're not feeling the love that you felt when she was all Google-eyed at you in the beginning of the relationship. And now you're wondering where the relationship is going. Well, you're failing to be the lover, and the lover that is built through devotion to Yah.
That's right. And then when you think about that devotion to Yah and what you're saying right now, there's a timeline, right? There's a clock. And this isn't, and I'm not saying this to say that you have to rush yourself or that you have to meet certain deadlines, but as things are progressing, so should we. That's what growth is. That's what time, and growth is. So I'm hearing the elders say words like devotion. I'm hearing words like discipline. I'm hearing words like desire. I'm hearing words like being in the different roles that we're supposed to maintain. So there's another reference in this chapter here that talked about the difference between desire and discipline. And so when
Mhm.
it comes to devotion for Yah, it would be easier to just follow the timeline and just do exactly what's according to plan. But does that mean that your heart is in it? Does that mean that there's love involved? Does that mean that you are rejoicing and glad to do it? Or are you just following marching orders? Right. And it's the same thing with our wives and in our relationships, because a woman who's just with you, who's just taking marching orders from you, but whose heart is not there, you're gonna feel that. It's not going to matter what the person is doing if their heart really isn't in it. And this is a good point to finding the root of the fruit. Is the person genuinely loving it? Are they genuinely devoted? And so the book uses an example that really hit home for me personally. That he said, the difference between discipline and desire. Discipline can be what you know that you're supposed to do and that you're always doing it, but desire is when something that affects you, gives you the fuel and the fire to propel to do something, to make a change or to make the extra effort. And he uses a hospital reference. I was at one point, and I'm not claiming it, but diagnosed with issues of the heart, right? And you have one or two options sometimes when you go to the doctor. You can either make a change or take the pill or count the timeline of how long you're expected to live. But that fire doesn't have to wait until that moment where you're at the crossroad or the fork in the road. it could start much earlier when the hints are being dropped. And most women have already dropped hints to you. Most women have already given clues, even if they're not even conscious of it themselves. And the Father gives us all the knowledge and all the things that we need throughout our scriptures that we need to be reading to isolate those moments and to be able to propel and grow, so that we're not waiting for a make or break point when we could build that desire from a young spiritual walk and in a young age within these marriages and relationships.
Yeah, as you can see, there is so many nuggets in this book that really give you pause to have to think about, as far as your relationship, as far as um, being a man, the moment demands as a lover. There's a lot of great points. And like you were saying earlier, we just need to read it slowly. And, that we don't have to try to get it all in one day. But I think if we're doing it, reading a little bit here, giving ourselves time to really meditate and to think on it, then we can begin to build good, healthy understanding as to where we're at, so that we can begin to heal. And all of us do. We all need healing. We can't get through this experience in the flesh without having some damage. And so we're gonna have to heal at some point. And having good writers, elders, people that have gone on before us that are willing to put it in writing, or either sit down and have a conversation about where we've been and how to get to the next level, how to avoid the pitfalls and the hurdles, then we can have a more smoother life. His
That's
next point
right.
was loving his neighbors. Now, to love your neighbor, where do we hear that at? Where do we find that, as far as life and things that we're supposed to, how we're supposed to live our life? Where do we hear, where we first hear that we've got to love our neighbors?
We hear it in the school systems, we hear it at work, we hear it just out in the community. But first and foremost, we hear it all throughout the scriptures about being considerate one to another.
That's right. The scripture, when we look at the Ten Commandments, we we start the commandments by talking about how to love the Father, how to properly love Him, how to properly serve Him, and to honor and respect Him. And then it begins to talk about how we relate to one another. And so the scriptures again are giving us a roadmap as to how to be the lover, or how to be successful as the man that we're supposed to be, so that we can handle all of the situations of life. And there's a lot of situations of life, because life is really abstract in each of our lives, meaning that we're not all going to have the exact same experiences. I'm going to have different experiences, and some of those experiences, because I've lived through them, you may not necessarily be able to see or to glean everything from, but as you go through life, you're going to be able to relate and understand. So the scriptures do tell us and show us that loving our neighbors is important. We have to love one another, and when we start having hatred, unforgiveness, bitterness, uh, co-
Hmm.
covetousness, uh, all of these things actually work against us.
That's right.
We often don't think that just because I'm here within the four corners of my home, that if I don't forgive somebody, then that's just me being able to vent, or to get out my frustration. But it's hurting me more than it's hurting the person that I need to forgive.
That's right. The scriptures talk about that being a form of heaviness. Now, whatever illness or sickness you may be dealing with, that could be one of the roots of that particular piece of fruit that need to be dug up. In regards to forgiveness, and also you better believe that the trials and tribulations and the experiences that you go through. In James, it talks about the trying of your faith worketh patience. right? And so, and I was going to say earlier, all the different things that you may go through, whether it be, in different hurts and different healings, all of that accumulates to preparing you to love your neighbor better, love your wife better, love your spouse better, love the father better, because you shouldn't be going through anything without learning anything. I tell people all the time, don't go through something without learning something, because
That's
these
right.
experiences are meant to make you stronger.
That's right. That's right. And but the only way that we're going to even recognize that is first we have to have we got to have the correct love towards one another. And he puts writes a verse out of First Corinthians, and I want to read that. But and we'll get to that. But uh, the scriptures again are giving us that roadmap. We have the blueprint if we want to be good lovers, because again, good lovers is not just what goes on in the bedroom. This is lovers in life, lovers in how I live my life and my relationships, my friendships, and my devotion to Yah. And our next point, the last point, and
And
maintain.
if I may, before you get to this last point,
Mhm.
and for those of you that are just so deeply concerned with what's going on in that room, the real secret is the love starts before you get there, so that end goal is successful in the first place. It
That's right.
starts way before you even get in the house.
That is
So,
correct.
and again, we won't that could be a whole nother discussion on a whole nother day, time, and hour, but
And
it it is
a whole nother book.
a whole nother book and everything. But you better believe, like with anything, it starts before you even get in the home, including loving your neighbor. If you can't love the people out there, you trust me, it's gonna bleed out into your relationship of at home at some point, or onto your children, or the consequences of you not being a good lover to people out there and being kind. Those consequences can sometimes fall upon your children, and you see it in them, because the father's gonna show you your folly. However, he need to make sure that you see it. He's gonna make sure that you know. So I love this next one we're going into, as far as like some of the things you can study at home and looking in that mirror and making sure you have friends around you that are gonna hold you accountable. But that also means you being an honest person as well, if you want people to be honest with you.
The lover, it says, and maintaining his own well-being.
Hmm.
uh, that's probably one of the last things that we think about, when we think of being a good lover, is that we're taking care of ourselves. If we're not healthy, our health has an impact on just about every aspect of our life, from the way our cognitive abilities are, um, our the way we our emotional health, our physical health, and how we're able to get around, how we're able to even maintain friendships or relationships. If we're so far out of shape, and we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not getting enough sleep, if we're not getting the right nutrition, and it's going to have effects in
That's
every
right.
aspect of our life.
Because if you're missing places where you can't be there for yourself, you can't show up for somebody else, and you're not there for yourself
Absolutely,
first.
absolutely.
I think we've used the airplane example before. Secure your own safety, and then you're in perfect position to secure somebody else's.
And that's in every aspect of saving somebody. If we're going to be to rescue anybody, we first have to make sure that we're, because a
That's
swimmer, if
right.
somebody's drowning, you just can't go swimming to that person and grab that person. You have to understand how to properly grab that person so that that person doesn't drown you. So,
That's right.
so
And I
we've
just
got,
learned how to swim a year ago. It took me forever to overcome that fear to get in that water. And there were times I felt myself drowning, and I was like, I was told that just do a dead man's float and they'll know you're drowning and they'll come save you. I was probably dead manning for I don't know how long. I was like, they gonna think I know what I'm doing. They gonna think I'm doing what I'm doing. But it's a trust thing, right? And they have to know, in that moment of panic, in that moment of fear, in that moment of chaos, when the lifeguard came and scooped me up under my arms, I knew it was the lifeguard without seeing the person, without hearing a whistle blow because I'm underwater. I felt the technique of the arm that reached up under both my arms and was swimming me up to the top. It felt intentional. It felt like the individual knew what they were doing, and it caused me to relax. It
yeah,
helped me to relax. It helped me to just allow myself, to be safe. But depending on what that initial touch or grab could have felt like, oh yeah, it's either me or you, and I'm trying to save me, and then you
Yeah.
don't even can't consider the other person. So I've
And
been in that drowning
that's a great
situation.
analogy that you brought out, and how that first touch, again, had the lifeguard not prepared himself to be able to do that, then he could not respond in the appropriate way, and it would have worked against both of you. And so when we talk about being whatever the moment demands, that means that I've got to work on me enough that whenever I'm responding in an appropriate way for whatever the circumstances is, that when that person feels that touch, they know that I know what I'm doing. They know I understand that
They can
I'm
trust,
responding in a way in which is supportive, caring, loving. I'm meeting,
intentional.
yeah, intentional, but I'm meeting that moment,
That's right.
and
Showing
so
up, showing up correct. You know, you don't call the plumber to come put out a
another
fire.
phrase we use a lot, showing up correct.
Showing up correct, and be man enough to know that if you don't know what you're doing, find the proper help. That you don't have to be the one to put the cape on to make sure that the goal gets met. The goal is to save the individual. It don't have to
Mhm.
come from you. Somebody plants a seed, somebody comes by, waters it, somebody comes by, puts dirt on it, somebody comes by and moves a leaf out the way so the sun can shine on it. Let each one teach one, and it just in this here a little, there a little, but it doesn't always have to mean it has to directly come from you. But again, that moment, like it was really refreshing to know that it can happen that way. And even as a massage therapist, the first touch onto a client, it could mean the difference between trusting me or them being tense, more tense than when they came in. It really
Absolutely,
matters.
absolutely, boy. You throwing out the metaphors right today.
Man, life, but like we said earlier, when life happens, like you better learn something from it. It don't. It just. Whatever job you have, what your children like. These lessons are not isolated to just that moment. It's every moment that the moment demands. It's every opportunity, and we need these examples. Again, I'm not going through nothing without learning something, and I can only pray that it's landing on good soil. But it's not for me to turn around and check. You know. And including when we talk about letting your light so shine. That doesn't mean kicking down people's doors to let the light shine in. It just means just letting it shine and make sure you're not hiding it under a bushel.
That's right. Just so it can be seen. I mean,
Just so, yep.
most of this stuff, most of being what the moment demands is really subtle. And again,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a floodlight. um, just subtle things that you do. When you talk about rescuing somebody that's drowning, it's not it's not a aggressive grab that you're doing, but it's a subtle grab. Because once that person knows where you're trying to reach to help them, they, like you said, they relax and allow themselves to be rescued. um,
Right.
but if you're not, but if all of a sudden they feel this pressure on their shoulders, it almost feels like, wait a minute, somebody's trying to drown me.
Right. They trying to make it happen quicker. But and I love that you used the word subtle because in that moment I was 19 years old and it was the most subtle scoop. It was a very subtle scoop, and obviously it worked. I'm here today, hallelujah. I was trying to impress a girl, but that was not the right way to show her love. When I could have just been honest and told her I didn't know how to swim. That was not the man that the moment demanded in that moment at all. But I like the lesson that I learned from it. And I think you had a what was the other point that you were going to go into, Elder, about was it the mirror?
No, not yet. I hadn't. We're going to get to the mirror work, but uh, we're done with the description. I know, again, the description really talks about so much of where this chapter is at, because one of the other highlighted areas was to talk about don't live on empty. And
Ooh.
that's part of what the being able to take care of yourself is, not being overworked. I consistently let my Maisha know that I cannot allow myself to get burnt out. So that means I have to gauge the hours that I work because I don't, I can work 12 hours, if I want to. The company, driving, making the money, I can be out there saying, I'm gonna be out here until they tell me I can't. But eventually I'm gonna burn out. And if I burn out, how can I be what I need to be? How can I be that man the moment demands? If I'm only eating pizzas and Burger King and Kentucky Fried Chicken, all of these things are going to begin to work against my physical body. Now I'm getting out of shape, and I'm going to struggle with being uh, what I need to be at. So is it don't live on empty?
That's right.
Uh,
Instead of trying to be this impressive, you think where you think it's impressive to act like you're always having a full tank of gas when really you're burning fumes. That's not impressive to anybody, especially when you crash. A body crash, a tired crash, a mental crash. Like none of that is ever a positive thing. And what I love about this point in this chapter is the fact that we see bits of this point being made throughout the previous chapters where he's slowly micro dosing us to let us know as men that breaks are allowed, breaks are encouraged.
mm,
Admitting when you're tired. That we've reflected on some of these things in the past chapters, and this is just another angle of observation of that we are human and we are human men. And like Elder said, in order to be that man, that moment demands how much gas is really in that tank for this particular thing, or did you allow yourself to be burnt out unnecessarily in other
mhm.
aspects?
You know, you're right. He is taking us through, and they're all micro lessons that we are learning through here, but they're building on one another. Chapter one is not to be forgotten as we go through chapter six. We
That's
have to
right.
hold on to these things, hold on to what we're learning so that we can begin to build what it is that is needed to be built in order to be what the moment demands. He writes in the last portion of this, the last paragraph of that particular of uh, well, actually, not in that last one. It's the actually the next portion when it talks about fight to love yourself. Um, it says embrace the power of no and not now. These are not just words; they are guidelines against the erosion of the um, mental and physical health. The When spoken, you shield yourself from others' expectations and reap many benefits. So when you're loving your when you love yourself, you have to learn that sometimes you have to say no, so that other people aren't causing you burnout. Because you can allow other people to cause you to burn out. You can go
And then
allow
you'll
other people to work you beyond what you're physically or mentally or emotionally capable of.
and that can create a bitterness because you're going to want to blame them, you're going to want to blame the people around you, but really it was you not utilizing the power of no or not now. And in those moments where you did say yes and then afterward you felt some type of way about it, or you felt like that took more from you than what you desired, take note of that and don't allow it to happen again. Don't rest on the bitterness, don't let it build up, but remember, well, the last time I did this or I allowed myself to be moved beyond what I was maybe ready for, I felt this way, so let me make sure to say no next time. You can say it kindly, but make sure you say it affirmingly. Like our scripture says,
Mhm.
let your yes be yes and your no be no. And be very clear and intentional, not just for them, but also for you. You might want to let the person know, hey, look, I really want to help you with this, but I want to help you with this when I'm at my best. And I'm not going to be at my best for you today or the people later on if I help you with this right now. So not right now, but when my mind is set for it, I'll get to it. I had a client earlier, and they're married, and it's such a loving example. The wife wanted the bathroom redone, and and better look, nicer. Let's shine this up. I'm tired of looking at it this way. All the things that you may hear from a wife when she's ready for something to be redecored, right? And the husband, he wanted to make it happen for her, but he had to let her know, like, look, honey, I don't know when, but I got a lot going on, and sometimes as men, we don't know how to express everything that's going through our mind, and that's okay that you don't express everything, but just simply saying, not right now, but when the timing is right, I won't forget and I'll get to it. Now, make sure if you say that, that you do actually get to it, not 2 years later. Not she has to keep reminding you that she said that. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I'm gonna get to. I'm gonna get to. I'm gonna get to it. Just cause. Nobody wants to keep hearing a bunch of excuses. If you don't want to do it and you need to contract out, or if you can't do it and you need to ask help from somebody else, you got to be man enough to say that. But if you know that you will honestly get to it later, assure her of that so that she can trust your statement. Sure enough, 4 months later, they had 2 weeks off of work, and he said, "Hey, remember that thing that you want the bathroom? This is the perfect time for us to redo the bathroom together." And you know what? They did it during their 2 weeks off. The bathroom turned out great. It's a project they got to do together, and he was in the right headspace to make sure it got done right, and all ended well.
Mhm.
But you got to make sure what you say, that your word has weight. You can't just be talking because
He was the man the moment demanded.
he was the man the moment demanded. Exactly. This is an older gentleman, so I'm learning a lot from him, through some of these sessions as well. So listen to your elders because they know what they're talking about, and they've already been there and done that. But again, what really stuck with this more than anything was that he kept his word. If he waited a year and then said, "Hey, what about the bathroom?" By that time, the wife is already probably like, "Look, I've then since let that idea go. You
Yeah.
brush me off so long, I don't even care about it anymore." And that's not what you want. That's not genuine. That's not love, right?
Jason has
That's neglect. That's a
Jason
neglectful
has
response.
he has some bullet points down here. Up underneath that, the first bullet point was preserve your energy and time. Again, understanding where your limits are at, understanding your time. Don't overschedule. You don't want make sure you don't want to overschedule. The next bullet point was gain respect for boundaries. Another bullet point: enhance well-being. Prioritize self maintenance. This is all up under the heading of fight to love yourself. It says promote authenticity, open open opportunities, strengthen confidence. So all of these things must be worked on. All these things must be remembered so that we uh, can deal with these things as we move on and as we mature and grow as men, so that we can be all that we need to be.
Hallelujah.
Now, I had mentioned that he had First Corinthians 13, 4-7 is talking about love. It says, "Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous, or boastful, or proud,
That's
or
right.
rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always helpful, and endures through every circumstance." And as I was saying earlier, when we want to understand how to love, the scriptures give us all that we need. It gives, I mean, and it's breaking it down so that we have no doubt as to the things that we need to work. Now, I teach First Corinthians 13 every year. Why? Because it's important. It's, understanding how to love and how to love one another is so important that we need to know. And so I always ask, is there anything in those particular scriptures that you find that, wow, I don't know if I can do that, or I don't know if I meet that level of love? And if the answer is no, then that means that those are the areas that you need to work on.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and I got one more point here, and then we're going to go to the mirror work, and that's under love and respect. A comprehensive man understands the power of purity and respecting the sanctity of love. Don't believe don't believe the misleading mantras, good guys finish last. They don't. They arrive just in time for the woman who waits patiently. Men do not rush the process. Abstain from premarital sex and discard the misogynistic mindset because promiscuity clouds clarity. Trust me, Adam, you may miss the Eve standing right in front of you because you're focused on another kind. So, understanding what a comprehensive man, again, what we when he mentions comprehensive, because that's a subtitle to his book, The 10 Comprehensive, what is the the master of the 10 characteristics of a comprehensive man. So
Uh-huh.
being comprehensive meaning you're understanding those characteristics. And this is what we're going through. And one of the characteristics is being a lover. And so if we're going to understand what that means, then that means that we're going to have to go through the different aspects of what a lover is, not only just that one, but looking at every area of what a lover is, so that we can again meet the demand. And
That's
that's
right.
going to be in a lot of areas. It's some areas are not going to be listed in this book, but if you have a good understanding of what is listed, then you can begin to see, okay, this looks like somewhat of what he was talking about when he was mentioning love and respect. And then you can make adjustments so that you can be what that moment demands.
That's right. And what I love about what the elder just read, it starts early. Again, like we talked about, any love that you're going to put into the home starts outside of the home. It first starts in your household. It very first and foremost starts with the love of Yah and Him first loving you, all the way to your loved ones and families and friends around you, to your spouse, potentially in the future, your children, your grandchildren, and always, of course, yourself as well. It's not promoting selfishness, but you also have to learn how to love yourself so that you can be even a greater lover to those around you. And this timeline maps itself out so that when you get to these different points in life, when the opportunity to love others comes up, you've built yourself up toward it. You've set the foundation so that good things can be placed on top of it, on good stony ground, right? On good stony ground that you want your foundation set. And of course, reading, and we talk about the comprehensive man because it's reading not to just say that you did it or just to complete the task or to show yourself discipline, but really take into time to understand and overstand what you read, not just in the man the moment demands, and comprehending little here, a little there, a little, but of course in our word, in our Bible, and in the word the Father gave us, which is His love, and comprehending that also here a little, there a little, and allowing yourself to grow so that the fruit and the root match one another in a righteous way.
Mirror time. That's the one activity that I'd like to read on pretty much behind every characteristic is mirror time, because mirror time actually, like the breakdown in the front of the chapter that describes the what's in the chapter, the mirror time kind of helps us uh, have a work to do, like a worksheet, something that we can practice that's going to help us put to use what we're learning. And that's, so he wants you to look in the mirror for about 60 seconds, and this is something that you do, uh, and you talk to yourself, and you make effort. You can make some of these are affirmations. These are things that you just want to remember. His first bullet point is, I will love myself for who I am and not for what I can do. Uh, that
Ooh.
that really is important, because if all we do is love ourselves for what we can do, what happens when tragedy happens and we
Oh my
lose certain
goodness.
aspects of our ability? Does that mean
Yo.
now that I can't love myself? You know, um,
And
go
I
ahead.
love what you're saying, Elder. Emotionally, this is touching me. Most people know I lost my eyesight at somewhat of a young age, around 10, 11 years old. But prior to losing my eyesight, I was an artist. Like,
Mm,
it's ironic, but I was a visual artist. I could look at something one time and draw it instantly. right? And I could read a book really quickly. I was the fastest reader in my class. I was on a higher reading level than others in elementary school. And I'm not saying that to brag. I enjoyed having those abilities to not only help others, but to bring smiles to people's faces, to the point where I got out of a lot of bullying because they saw some of the pictures I was drawing and it was like, "Oh, we don't want to bully you anymore, but can you draw me Spider-Man fighting Wolverine? Hey, that's hard. Like bring me, and I would get paid for it on the elementary playground, right? So here I am getting all these thumbs up and blue ribbons and all this applause from all the pictures that I can draw and the reading that I can do and taking more and more reading projects in school. And then I lose my eyesight. I cannot tell you, it felt like I lost more than just my eyesight because that was what I leaned on. That was the ability
Yeah.
that for me was everything. It was like the strength of Samson for me. And then
Yes.
I lost it. And I didn't do anything like Samson did to lose it, at least not that I'm aware of. But but I lost it, and with that went my confidence, went my what put me in a prostrated position, in my particular circles, like, what I didn't feel like I was really much of any. I was already short, I didn't have a very, deep voice, the bass in my voice, there's a pun there somewhere, but here I was, this little kid who couldn't play any sports, and the best thing I had was design, and I didn't no longer have it, and it hurt for a very long time. But what I learned through that experience is how to develop other parts of me so that I became a whole man and not a crutched man,
Because that's you found that you were more than what, just your eyesight.
and
And
more than my what I could produce.
right, and all of us are that way. I mean, some of us are great athletes, and we may get in an accident that causes us to no longer be able to perform.
That's
And
right.
so many people drown themselves in alcohol, drugs, or become a hermit in life because they put so much value on what they could do instead of who they are.
That's
And
right.
so,
And you may need to stop and ask yourself, why am I drinking? Why am I sleeping around? Why am I doing drugs? Why am I stealing? It may be a trauma response from a loss that you grieve because you didn't see that there's more to you than what you had before.
yeah. His second bullet point: I will no longer allow lust to tempt me into having premarital sex. So again, we have to run back to the scriptures and understand the order, understand what the Most High desires for us as far as how we govern and live our life. These things are important, that we don't give ourselves over to the bodily desires of the flesh.
That's
All of
right.
these things will bring us to ruin. Not only lust, but if we can't control our eating habits, because every time I feel like I'm hungry, I got to start stuffing food in my mouth. Well, that's
That's
going to
right.
become an issue. If every time I feel angry, that means that I got to respond, and I gotta deal with why I'm feeling angry. Well, that's going to bring us destruction. There's
That's
so many
right.
things in this world, in this life, that if we don't control the emotion, we don't control the natural body desires, they're just going to bring all kinds of disruption in our lives. And so
That's right.
here, because we are talking about love, we don't want to allow that lust to do that, because it will destroy the relationships that you're looking to be in, and the ones that you will get in the past
And
and in
again,
the
the book
future.
talks about the difference between that discipline and desire. Discipline yourself and then discover why your desires are what they are and work towards making them good and righteous desires and still disciplining yourself around that.
Next bullet point: I will overcome any past difficulties in love and affirmation. You know, look in the mirror, talk about, where my hurts come from. Where are my issues, the trauma that I've been dealing with? Does it come from, having a parent that uh, wasn't there for me, that abandoned me? Many of us have lost our fathers, for one reason or another, and we feel the sense of abandonment. And if we're not dealing with that, then it's going to affect our ability to be able to love others, to love the one that we're in a relationship with, and our children. And so we've got to address and overcome all of the difficulties that stand in the way of our ability to properly love.
That's right. And make sure you really read this part of the chapter where it's talking about the womb of a mother, because it's so easy to talk so much about the loss of fathers because we hear about it more. But there's also those that have lost mothers or didn't feel connected or affirmed by them as well. And there's particular trauma responses that also come with that the book will reflect on. So definitely encourage you to read it because it looks different on both sides.
I will learn how to love and respect the woman in my life. Um, it, Usually, the older we get, the more we understand that women are not like men. Um,
And accept
Often,
it as well.
and often as a young man, we think that women think the way we think, have the same desires that we have, enjoy the same things that we enjoy, want to do the same things that we do, uh, and have the same needs that we need. And it's far from the truth.
Not
And so
only is
you
it
have
far from the truth, but I promise you, you do not want her think. The Most High did not make mistakes when He made us the way He made us and the way we are made to think and respond and desire. You do not want women, your daughters, your mother, your wife, thinking like a man. There's a reason why we balance one
absolutely.
another out. You don't want that. You might think you want that, but I promise you, no, you don't.
And so learn how to love a woman, learn her needs, learn, um, gain an understanding as to how she was created, so that you can help her fulfill what that looks like. How you can be for her uh, that that covering, the head, the leader, the one that's going to help her fulfill her purpose. And if
That's
we
right.
understand that, then that's where we're truly going to be the lover. That's where we're truly going to be the man that can meet that demand in her life.
That's right. Just like we as men, we enjoy when the things that we can do, the things that we can produce, or the effort that we do put in, when it is highlighted and when it works and when it is helpful to others. And it's not to be prideful, but that those affirmations help us to know how to continue to keep that train going the right direction. Your wife needs that too. Your daughters need that as well. Where they do good. If she's asking you a whole bunch of questions about how some food tastes, it's because she also wants to get it right. Just the same as you want to make sure that things are right in the house and you keep asking questions the same way. There are some things that overlap, but there is an obvious and wonderful difference for the reason why we are different. So the exploration, it really could be a lot of fun to peel back these layers and continue to grow something wonderful on top of a solid foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. I will seek the help I need to heal and truly love myself and others. Man, it is self healing, self work is lifelong. It's not something that we do while we're reading the book and then think we have it all made and that there's no more work left to be done. It's a lifelong journey in healing. We're going to face many obstacles in life that will help us, or that will cause us to have to deal with our inadequacies, deal with our
That's right.
hurts, the traumas. You may do very well with doing that in your 40s and 50s. And then all of a sudden, you get into your older age, and then when your body starts to deteriorate and you start having other problems that are coming with age, then you may find that, man, I got more work to do. I've got to do this. I've got to, but it is a must that we consistently and at every stage of life be working on ourselves. There's going to be a time in life where our patience is not as strong as it was when we were younger.
Hmm.
There's going to be a time in life where we may get our anger may get out of control more because we just don't have what we used to have when we were younger. And so I can't just say, well, I'm an old man, and or uh, I'm too old. I'm too old to be learning anything. I've got to deal with all of these things as I move through life. And so that is if I can't do it on my own, then I need to seek the help.
That's
As
right.
long as
And
we
for a lot of
read, and this is one of the things I really like to encourage as we go through this book, is that we stay reading, that we are
That's right.
constantly trying to learn more information and get more information about ourselves, how to manage our own lives, how to be who we need to be for others, whether that's our wives, our children, or the relationships as far as friendships are concerned. And so we always need to be working on ourselves.
That's right. And for a lot of you, this book isn't isolated to a particular age demographic. It's really helpful at any point in your life where you are. It's helping me a lot to just reflect, on different things, and I'm glad we're reading it slowly. And so for anybody out there where the Bible is where you're at right now in the beginning of your stage and your journey as far as self-reflection and growing yourself, in addition to this book, The Man, the Moment Demands, and self-reflection and growing of yourself, we encourage you to, sit back, enjoy the ride, take notes, gain experiences, and be the example, and in the end that comes out of it.
Yeah. Well, that wraps it up for chapter 6. A good chapter. Uh, Again, just part of the whole, because we've got 10 characteristics that we're going to be looking at. Going to be looking at the nurturer for next week's or the next time we come. I know we have uh, Pesach going into next week, and we may end up missing that week as well. We're going to try to put something together while I'm out at Pesach and unleavened bread. But if not, the next chapter that we will be in when we get back together is chapter 7, talking about the nurturer. And all of these things are important as men so that we can be with whatever the moment demands. And this book is not going to be able to cover every moment of every man's life. But if we understand the different characteristics of what it is to be the fighter, what it is to be the provider, what it is to be the lover, the nurturer, and so on and so forth, we can begin to put together a roadmap so that we can always be working on ourselves, always be looking in the mirror, asking ourselves whether or not I am fulfilling what is needed of me. And sometimes we may not even know there's an area of our life that we're lacking, but
Mm.
a friend, a spouse, a leader, somebody may come to you and pull you aside and say, hey, you really didn't handle that situation very well. And you're going to have to ask yourself why. Nobody's going to be able to dig into you and say why you're not doing it. They may be able to give you some advice, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to look into your own heart, your own mind, and ask yourself why I, I'm not responding in the way that I should, why I'm not capable of being able to uh, uh, respond uh, comprehensively as this moment is demanding upon me. And be honest enough with yourself. If you have to write it out, even write out some bullet points and say, okay, you know what, I need to, until I can get it, let me make my own mirror uh, uh, work, so that I can look in the mirror on a day-to-day basis and say, I didn't have to eat this today. I'm gonna stick to my diet. I'm gonna stick to my workouts. I'm gonna do whatever, so that you can eventually get yourself uh, in the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health that you need to be the man the moment demands.